For everybody's information, for fire alarms, if we receive a fire alarm, there's two ways out of the chambers. The first one is directly behind you. Go out the double doors, take a right, out to the parking lot. The next one is through these double doors to my left, your right. First staircase down, go straight out into the parking lot. Can we stand for the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Just a little bit of information for the audience as to how we're going to conduct business tonight. The secretary will read the legal notice. The applicant will be asked to come forward before the board. The applicant will state their name and address for the record. Then the applicant will present their application, followed by questions of the board. The audience will be given the opportunity to speak in favor or against the application. If the audience does speak, the applicant will have final say. Additional information not submitted with the application shall be presented while the public hearing is open. Once the public hearing is closed, no further information will be accepted for review by the board. Comments made by the public that are not relevant to the exercise or the Commission's statutory or regulatory authority will not be considered by the Commission in reaching its decision. Once an application is presented, the public hearing will be closed, the applicant will be seated, in the audience, the board will conduct its business in making a decision. Chances are a decision will be reached tonight. You may or may not stay for the rest of the meeting. Staff will let you know the outcome of the decision by mail. Definition of a variance, when a variance can be granted. A variance is granted where such a grant will not affect the overall purpose of the zoning ordinance and where strict interpretation of the ordinance will result in a hardship. A hardship exists where the zoning ordinance uniquely affects a parcel of land differently from other properties and where use of the property or reasonable use of the land will be impossible without the variance. Self-imposed or financial hardships cannot by law be considered as a reason for granting a variance. Madam Secretary, can you read the legal notice, please?
The Enfield Zoning Board of Appeals will hold public hearings on Monday, February 29, 2016, 7 p.m. in the council chambers of Town Hall, first floor, 820 Enfield Street, Connecticut, concerning the following. ZBA 2016-02-01, Roby Realty LLC owner applicant, 9 Angina Drive, map 082, lot 56, I-1 zone, request to allow a 10-foot rear yard where 20 feet is required, a 10-foot side yard where 25 feet is required, and to construct a 2,800 square foot addition to the existing structure. Information on file at the planning office, dated this 17th day of February 2016, Mary Ann Turner, Secretary. Journal Inquirer, February 17th and February 25th, 2016.
Will the applicant please come forward?
Roger, we don't have a easel?
And if you could state your name and addresses for the record, please.
My name is Roby Staples. I'm the owner, 1145 Enfield Street.
My name is Todd Clark. I work for Ashelman Land Surveying, 1379 Main Street, East Hartford, Connecticut.
Go ahead with your presentation, gentlemen.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes, excuse me. I have a board member that would like to talk for just a moment.
Sure.
this is addressed to Mr. Staples. As you know, I represent your sister-in-law and have represented your mother-in-law in the past.
Oh, that's right.
I feel I can give you a fair hearing, but I'm leaving it in your hands. If you feel that I'm going to be biased on this, I'm happy to recuse myself.
I don't think that you're, that really has nothing, you represent my wife, my sister-in-law, I guess.
Right.
You don't represent me.
No, it has nothing to
My
do
wife,
with your
so-
application.
I don't think that has,
Okay.
I'm fine with you.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Proceed, please.
Why don't you tell them?
Okay. Mr. Staples is in need of enlarging his existing building at the back here. I'm sure you all know where it is. 9 Angina Drive. We do have a number of problems with enlarging this building. Obviously, there's a large conservation easement which he gave up when he developed the back portion of his property. During the development of this land, it was more or less ordered to do underground storage. At the time, it was 2006 or so. It was deemed that the best place to do the underground storage was directly alongside the building. All the utilities would have to come from the street, so it really left only that spot for the underground storage. Now, this is a large infiltrator system, fairly complex, tied to storm manholes, catch basins, and whatnot, intended to attenuate the surface or the rainwater, storm water, percolate a lot of it, and then the overflow would head out to the normal brook quite a ways over here. So with the fact that this system is here, conservation and wetlands is back here, utilities up here. We also have wetlands buffer, 100-foot buffer. About the only place left to put the addition is exactly where we've got it shown here. We're requesting a variance of approximately 15 feet. We'd like to go to 10 feet from the sideline. We'd like to go to 10 feet from the rear line, which is normally 20 feet. If there's any questions at this time, we'd like to try to entertain them.
Any questions of the board?
I have a few, Mr. Chairman.
Go ahead.
Well, I would like to mention that Mr. O'Brien did call the office Friday. Said a few of you had questions on the parking. I had not been involved with this project at that time, but speaking with my boss, he did not think that this was an issue at this point. We would naturally have to go to site plan review to get this, and we would address it at that time. We did check into it, however, and he does have approximately 9 extra spaces at this point. We will lose 6 or 8, depending on how the survey works out. We haven't done field work yet. We do want to go through the expense of a full-blown survey and parking analysis. If you folks won't allow the building to go where it is, this is our first step in the possible development of the addition.
So then you don't know how many parking spaces this property was to have when the original property was built?
When it was developed in 2006, it was shown to need 100 spaces. Property currently has 119 spaces on it.
Has how many?
119.
You believe you're going to lose about 8 or 9?
6 or 8. Those parking calculations.
I'll let these guys play with their papers first. It's okay.
Those parking calculations do get somewhat intensive based on the usage of the building. Our company has not been inside the existing buildings to determine how much office space and how much warehouse, that sort of thing, exists. So,
Well, when I was over there on Friday, all the parking was used. So it was pretty full. And I noticed that there's containers and some odds and ends in an area that I'm assuming are going away.
That's why we're trying to give them some more space.
So can you describe the building to me and how you plan to attach it to this existing building? Because I was having a little issue with that when I was out there. Is it going to go, are you going to take it up past the sidewalk and attach it directly to this building, or is it going to be freestanding?
The sidewalk runs right along here with the ramps. Mm-hmm. Right on the end of the building from the door there, the door,
Right?
an exit door. From there, back, and across the parking lot.
But how are you going to get into that? You're not incorporating the door that's on the building now, so you're going to add,
Incorporate a doorway here, inside.
see, that's one of the reasons why it helps if we had some building plans, so we could actually see it. Because if you were to not attach that addition, you have different needs for, you may not need a variance. So because when I went out there, I measured from the sidewalk where the double doors are all the way back to the end of the sidewalk, and it was 53 feet. But I didn't have any way of telling in your parking lot where the detention pond, I'll call it a detention pond, started and stopped. But I can guess from the plan that you gave me, there's probably about 6 or 8 feet from where you've got your 70-foot line of wall before you hit the manhole cover and the drainage. At least that,
The property line is right here, right?
right, but I'm talking about into the parking lot. Come back towards into the parking
I
lot.
didn't measure that, maybe he can ask that.
Okay, from the information we have, this base map is a scan from the 2006 drawing. We've got the new building shown approximately 2 feet from the catch basin, which is at the northern edge of the,
It's right at the edge of the door.
right. The steps come down right about where the building is. We're going to have to rework that existing doorway.
Are we talking about the thinner door? Are we not the double doors, because it's not near the double doors.
There's a single door.
Single door.
Single door. It's on the opposite side of the single door.
Right, and that's exactly where that line is. We're actually splitting the door with this line from what we taped in the field.
It's approximately, it's almost 10 feet from that door to the end of that building, existing building.
Okay, so you explained to me how you plan on getting into the structure. Do you think that you could, what is it, again, you don't have to tell me, but can you, if you were to detach that, what were you going to use it for? Is there stuff inside the building you're moving into it, or is there stuff that if you came in a different direction, you could actually move the building and keep it on your property? You know, make it so that it's detached. Detached, Roby gives you different variance. You may not need a variance at all. You'd have different, what's it called, setbacks. If you detach the building.
Like, I can't bring it forward into the parking lot because of the drainage system that, when I built that building, the engineering department and my engineer at that time decided that was the best way to go with the underground drainage and storage in there. Goes in, it goes back and forth in the parking lot. Then goes to the drains.
And is 2,800 square feet the actual final size you plan on building? Is that what you're for sure coming in here for?
No. I may have to, with the size of my building that's there, I may have to drop it 160 feet, this one.
So what is that- So what is that going to do to how, could you get into a little more compliance when you
That
make?
would be in compliance, but not, as far as it'd come from 25 to 3 feet less. We've looked at a lot of options, and without them going out of business,
What about going in,
It-
over in the other building? You have another building off the parking lot where the storage containers are sitting right now. There's a small building over there. They've got the big building where they admit, there's a parking lot, there's something
First
behind.
building?
There's the big, long first building, but when you go behind it, I thought, is that the,
That's not a
Is-
building. It's a pod.
there's a parking lot. That one there, I think you're pointing at, I think on the other side is where the containers are. Right?
If you go immediately around the back.
Go around the building,
Right here?
right in there.
Right here.
What if you put it right there? What, do you have enough room to, why couldn't you put it at that building?
Then I'd encroach on the wetland area.
And the only other thing is, when I read your application, and as Commissioner LaRosa has stated, it's very difficult for a financial reason. What is the property doing that's causing the problem?
Well, they need more space. And I can't, I don't see where else I can put it. And I can't intrude on this drainage. So, that's the most logical place there, to put it. It's not like it's a,
They can't hear you on TV.
it's not like it's a huge piece, huge building, but it's, enough that I could just fit it there with those two variances.
Any other questions of the board?
Not right now.
I've got just a couple. You just said that you're gonna make the building a little smaller.
Well, I have
So
to,
now you've confused me, because in the application it states, is this the smallest allowed variance? So now I need to know what the measurements of the building is that you're putting in, because I'm not gonna grant the variance for a bigger building than what you're putting in.
no, well, in speaking with the fire marshal, 12,000 feet.
Roger, we need them to sit so that they can see him on TV.
In speaking with the fire marshal, he informed me that 12,000 feet after that, we're gonna have to put a sprinkler in the whole building. This building and that.
Okay.
If I do that, I'd put them out of business trying to do it. It's just, they can't stop business. If they stop business, then. they'd have
Why
to
would
do
it stop business? Because you have to put a,
Sprinkler? That's a big job through this whole building. It says 9,360 square feet. They'd have to run mains in there, above the ceiling,
Okay, so,
and I can't,
if you're gonna bring the building down a little bit for the fire marshal,
3 feet, that's all.
3 feet,
That would be from either the 40-foot or the 70-foot.
is this a storage building?
Yes.
Okay, so back to Commissioner Turner's question. If you made that building just a little smaller and detached it from the main building, you, I believe, can come within 5 feet. You don't even have to make it smaller. Detach it from the building and you can move it so that it's 5 feet from the property line. Yes, you'll have to put a ramp out one building and into the other, but it's storage. It's not like you're going to be doing it 30, 40, 50 times a day. But if it wasn't attached to the main building, your setbacks change, and you may not even need a variance for any of the project. you can come within 5 feet of either property line. The reason you need to be 25 feet and 20 feet away is because it's attached to the main building. The main building must be so far away from the property line. But an accessory structure or an accessory building can be closer. You can give them exactly the size building they want without attaching it, and your problem goes away.
They want access to go through here into another small storage area. And then I still have to adjoin it, so. No, there's no way I can tell them how to do their business.
Could we just clarify, what is it, if you built a smaller building, do you want 3 feet less on the back or on the side?
I believe on the side, the 70-foot width.
Any further questions of the board? Absolutely. Yep.
What is the difference between an attached structure? What is the functional difference as far as what the board and regulation is concerned with a attached structure or a detached structure? That
An attached structure is the main structure. A detached structure is an accessory to the main structure. In the regulations for zoning that the town has, the main structure has certain setbacks allowed on the front, side, rear, and stuff like that. Accessory structures have different allowances.
and those setbacks are created for the purpose of maintaining neighborhood appeal or functionality, safety. That's what I'm getting at.
They could be there for many different reasons,
Okay,
but they are there, so that's what we follow.
understood.
Accessory.
I'm just trying to keep the tenant happy.
No, I understand.
And
So your 3 feet you want to take off the side.
the 70-foot width.
So that goes from a 15-foot variance to a 12-foot
12.
variance. So we're looking for a 10-foot and a 12-foot. Now this is, I'm assuming this is gonna be just on a slab. You're not pouring, you're not digging down, there's no foundation to it, there's,
Yeah, there's footing,
Or-
foundation, and slab.
okay. Now, just because I'm not sure what the detention system is, are you able to put something over any portion of the detention system?
No,
Okay.
I'd have to pour footing, foundation, and
Okay.
for me to disturb that is, I'd run out of the approval for the other buildings, you know?
Okay. I just didn't know if it was possible, so I figured I'd ask.
No, it's a sophisticated system that
You can just jump
they
in.
come up with.
Who, on the backside and on the side, who would be impacted by this structure?
Mr. Polak, well, I've already sat down with him and talked to him, and he doesn't have any problem with me.
And he owns the property along the side and
On
back?
both front and side,
Back.
and the back, rather.
Does he live right next to the,
Nobody ever sat down with me and talked about anything.
I went to your brother and his wife, gave him a print.
Okay, you'll have a chance to speak if that's what you'd like to do.
Maybe, I don't know, is that your brother? or-
Mr. Staples, I'd rather have the communication this way than,
Okay.
thank
Well, I
you.
went to Mr. Polak I sat down with him and his wife, and he had no problem with it.
Is there a residence right nearby the boarding adjacent property? Okay.
The only residence is, I believe, Mr. Polik,
All right, thank you.
which is on the other street, the main street.
Okay. Any other questions of the board?
I just had one. So this building's going to be fully enclosed when you're
Yes.
done? It's not going to be like an open shed or anything like that?
Well, there'll be a door for,
Yeah, but it's gonna have solid walls is what I'm asking.
it's gonna have metal walls, just
Yeah.
like it'll match the building that's there.
Okay. Thanks.
And the only access to this building will be from inside.
No,
Okay, that's one of the problems, is we do not have plans. So tell me now what's new. So how are you going to,
I'm gonna put a doorway right in the center of this building, 70-foot, right in the center. And that'll comply with 50-foot regulation that you have.
50-foot regulation of what?
It's 50 feet, you can walk 50 feet maximum before you can get out of the building, or,
So the idea of detaching the building is not an option you're willing to take back to your client?
well, I don't think I could.
Okay.
Any further questions? Okay, if you'd like to have a seat.
Thank you.
Is there anybody in the audience wishing to speak for or against the application? Come forward, please. State your name and address for the record, please.
Good evening, Karen LaPlante, 166 North Maple Street in Enfield, and I grew up basically on this farm. It was my grandfather's at one time. That vernal pool that's there is more of a spring-fed area than a vernal pool. It's wet practically year-round. There's always water running off that bank to the north. So when Mr. Staples bought this property, he knew it was wet. He knew what he would have to build on and what he wouldn't have to build on. I have an objection that he's claiming this is number 9 Angina Drive. The town assessor's database, if it's up to date, is only listed as number 7 with 2 buildings already existing on it. I have that printout here if nobody looked on the assessor's database. So he's only getting charged for 1 lot, 1 industrial lot, not 2, which he claims he wants to add this building to number 9. Number 9 doesn't exist. The other thing, the GIS system doesn't even show the second building on here yet, so that's a little confusing. I did take a couple pictures as to how close this is to the property line of the farm, and it's quite a good steep bank from where his property is down to the farm. So if he were to build right on that, close to that property line, you know, he's already real close with the existing building. And I'll pass around a picture that I took.
Can you read that into the record?
Yeah, that's, this is some kind of a.
Yep, I was out there.
Yeah.
I know what you're talking
And-
about.
And it's not far, and then the road that you can see on the.
Remember, they can't hear you.
Yep. One shows the, they're pretty much the same. One shows the,
Slope.
it kind of doesn't really show the slope, but it shows the assessor, or the surveyors.
The marking.
There's some kind of a marker there with a
I'll
yellow
bring 'em to
flag.
you, Roger.
Orange, with a pink flag on it.
Make sure we stamp them both.
Can we
Yeah.
give-
Both the same, I would have taken them.
Can we
One-
give Ms.
one-
Turner a second so she can kind of describe them to
Yep.
read them into the
Yep,
record here
and that's
for
from
you?
the north side of the property.
Okay, I have 2 8.5 by 11 full-color photos. One that takes the back of the building where the air conditioners are facing against the building, and the other one is looking up the, we'll call it a
Right.
slope, towards the parking lot, but encompasses the marker to show that how far the building would go out.
Right, and, you know, looking at his plan, it looks like that existing building is really far from the property line, but it's not really far from that bank. So how much closer he could build to that bank on the north side, I really question. And I really think this is strictly a financial hardship, and it's got nothing to do with, you know, the fact that, you know, he has a very wet area that has known springs in the area. We used to ice skate on that little pond there. It was, you know, ice skateable during the winter. We didn't have to worry about falling in because it was shallow, but it was always skateable. And there's 3 ponds in that area that we were able to skate on as kids. And unfortunately, they've deteriorated since these buildings have gone in. I mean, the peepers used to be extremely noisy in the spring. You can barely hear them now because they've been damaged by the development. Again, this is one lot, according to the assessor, unless the assessor's database is wrong. How many buildings are you allowed on an industrial lot? He's already got 2, plus those accessory structures that he's got. And he's looking to add a 3rd by the looks. So, and just because that's a conservation area and he can't build on it, well, he knew that pond was there when he bought it. So he's just trying to put more building on a lot that really can't handle it. And I would request that you deny the variance. Thank you.
Anybody else in the audience wish to speak in favor or against? Come forward, please. State your name and address for the record, please.
Name is Mark Polick, 72 Georgewood Road in Summers. He spoke to my brother, which is only Polick Properties owns the property north of his structure. He spoke to Paul Polick, my brother, who's only 25% shareholder in Polick Properties. I don't know how the other 75% would feel about him putting another building 10 feet from our border. So at this time, I was never notified that this was going to be there. Maybe he talked to Paul, but I knew nothing about it. At this time, I would request that you deny the application until I get to talk, you know, with my brothers and sisters about it. That's it.
Thank you. Anyone else wish to speak in favor or against the application? Mr. Staples, would you like to speak again?
I went to Mr. Pollack. I guess now he has a brother. I did not know that. He didn't tell me that. I gave him one of the prints, showed him where I was going to do the building, and he had no problem with it whatsoever. The conservation area there on the print, that was there when I bought it, and I knew about it. As far as the slope going down in the back, the building it's in the regulation. I didn't go for variance on the big building. That was in the regulation, and it was built to spec. And that's all I can tell you. I apologize to Mr. Pollack. I did not know there was another Mr. Pollack. I knew there was a father, but I guess the father passed away. Other than that, I didn't know there was any more Mr. Pollacks.
Okay.
You know.
Any other questions of the board?
I have one for Roger.
Okay.
There's no way for us to know if one building was approved by planning and zoning to be built, or if there always was two, because there's nothing in our documents to state otherwise. I mean, we would be under the assumption, having gone out there, that there's 2 buildings, and they were approved. But if what Ms. LaPlante is showing us is not, I'm curious.
The records of the planning office are such that there are two approved buildings. The second building was approved I believe it was 2006, and that's the basis of the map that was used for the to show the commission, and that's when we went and looked it up. It is true that for the purpose of the assessor, he calls the entire thing 7 Angina Drive, but both buildings were approved, went through Planning and Zoning Commission, did have show the complete parking plan in the underground gallery. So it's not unusual for two departments in a town to have records that don't completely match up. There may be a second card. In my experience, that sometimes the assessor has one card and then he shows a second card, which might show the second building. I don't know, and
Well, we may just
we would
want-
all just be speculating. But
Right.
as far as the question of was that second building approved? It was approved by Planning and Zoning.
But we do need to find out if the assessor is charging for a second building. Because that's tax
That would
dollars-
be
that's tax dollars that aren't happening.
that would be a question that would be important to the town. I'm not sure that it that it impacts your decision one way
No,
or
it
the other.
does not at all.
Right.
I'm just
So I
saying to
think
you-
at this point, the commission has three choices. One is, if you're so inclined to approve it. The second is if you're so inclined to deny it. Well, there's four choices. The other is you can deny it without prejudice, which meant the applicant could come back and doesn't have to wait. Or you could simply table it. There's plenty of time to answer these questions. If you wanted to table it and answer whatever questions you are. So I think the commission has the full plate of possibilities that you could look at.
Any other questions? I've just got a couple. When you build this proposed addition, I've been out to the property 3 times. Where you have it staked out for the edge of the building, you are right on that hill.
Right on the edge of the
Are
hill,
you gonna
yeah.
have to
It
move-
comes probably 3 feet over the parking lot.
I'm talking about the
No, the far edge.
far end, closer to the farm.
North.
What side?
The north side. You're right there on that hill.
Yeah.
How much dirt are you going to have to move around to be able to pour footings and stuff to? Is that going to impact the the farm property, trying to stabilize that land to build the building? Because the edge of your building is right there on that hill. So
I don't believe so. I would grade it where it's fine, and to answer another question, the drainage, there is no more drainage with the building on it or not there. It's the same amount that's going to be, and those numbers are be put together by an engineer. It doesn't drain that way. It'll drain to the west, from east to west. And it'll come off and go in the parking lot and drain into drainage.
Okay. Now, a couple of board members have asked if you'd be willing to go to your customer and ask if they could do a detached or asked if they could do a smaller building. Would you like time to go approach them to do that to see what their answer would be? Or do you just want to move forward with what you've got in front of us?
Well,
I'm giving you that option.
maybe I better take the option, because if you feel that I don't need a permit the other way, it might change their mind. I don't know.
The issue that I see, there is a slight slope, and Roger, I'm going to defer back to you, but won't there be, and I don't know how deep of an escarpment would be, is that would be considered that? Because it's going to be an issue there, and Inlands and Wetlands is going to want to see it, which then means that they should have gone to them first.
Well, this is always an issue with somebody who wants to invest in something, because if this board was to deny the variance, then they wouldn't be spending the detail to answer the questions that they would have to answer if they move forward, whether it be to wetlands if there is a determination that there would be an impact, or to
Problem is,
planning and
Roger,
zoning.
I hear you, but our problem is if we were to give the variances are there now forever to anyone. We can't go back and hedge our bets. Once we approve or deny, that's it. So that's why if it was good, it should have, we've had this discussion prior to you. I feel it's premature sometimes to come in front of us asking us to give you something when we have no way to find out what's going to happen when the other board is going to look at it, because we cannot take those variances back. If planning and zoning shoots the project down, the variance is there.
Well, the
If-
planning and zoning can't hear it if
They can.
If they can't hear it if it needs a variance. They can't approve something subject to a variance.
They can hear about the project to see if it's even something to move forward. Inlands and Wetlands for sure could hear it before they have a variance.
Wetlands could take it up.
Well-
That is true, but
Okay.
planning and zoning, it starts here if there's if there's a regulation that needs to be varied.
Okay.
I was just thinking about your comments on the grading in the wetlands. Perhaps it would be good if we tabled it and we could show the elevations from when I was out there to mark it. It seemed to me if we were at the same level as the existing building, there'd be very little grading.
You're going to be right, literally. I was out, I took my photos while I was there. If this building goes where you think you want it to go, it is right on the cusp of that slope.
Right. We wouldn't be cutting into it.
But you're in the buffer.
What I'm
You're-
saying is we can take the next month, go out and get the elevations. The 100-foot wetlands line is to the east of the new building. So it's not a regulated area. If we can show that we don't need to grade in a regulated area, we shouldn't have a problem with the wetlands. I'm suggesting that we take the time to shoot the grades ourselves.
But also that foundation and footing, the foundation would come up, and the elevation would be the same on the bottom, you know?
If you weren't needing a 15-foot variance, you'd be in line with your building. You're going way over, and you'll be on the slope. I know what you're telling me.
That's only a 10-foot on that end, on the north side.
You need 15 feet from us on
he's
one
coming
side,
back.
and you need 10 feet on
It's
another.
coming back 3
Yeah.
feet.
We don't know that. The plan I have in front of me says 2,800 square feet. I do not have anything that says anything different. Okay.
You're the first guys I gotta go to. And after you, or approval or not approval, then I go to planning and zoning. You can't go to planning and zoning and then come back, you know?
I understand.
Waste of time, money.
I think what you're hearing, though, sir, is that this board needs more details to feel comfortable with what you're asking, so that's what I'm hearing.
I would come prepared with exactly what you plan to build, exactly where you want to put it, and be open-minded to tell us something different.
So
That would be my
if
suggestion.
you're interested in postponing it, you can just let Roger know that, and the board won't move forward with anything tonight.
Well, I think you need a motion to table. If
No,
you-
if we table it, we do, but he can pull his application from us at this point.
Well, you've already opened the hearing, though, so I think you need a motion to table it.
Okay.
I make a motion to table.
Do I have a second? Made by Mary Ann, seconded by Mr. Masperdi. Any questions, any comments? All in favor? Okay, we'll table the hearing. And
Okay.
I would just go back to your customer and see what you can come up with.
Okay, thank you.
Don't throw your stuff away. Yes.
All right, in your packet, you'll find the minutes for January 25th.
So moved.
Second.
Motion by Ms. Turner.
Second.
Second by Ms. Skull. Any
Changes.
changes? Discussion?
Looks good to me.
Yep.
Okay, all in favor, signify by raising your right hand. Motion passes. Staff correspondence and reports. What do you have for us, Roger?
Yes, I'd like to introduce Kim Holden, who's sitting out here. Kim has joined us part-time to help with some of the evening meetings until we recruit to replace some of the vacancies that we have. So she's very experienced, working for let's see if I can remember off the top of my head, Farmington, Hartford, West Hartford, and Casper, Wyoming. Did I get it all?
In zoning?
I'm planning and zoning in Casper and Hartford as well.
So we're taking her through this week. We got 3 meetings this week and letting people know and let her get familiar with the process. And if I'm not able to make a meeting in this interim until we get more people on, making sure you have professional staff.
Okay. Welcome aboard.
And she passed the first test. You went and got an eagle.
All right, do you have anything else for us?
I do not. There are 2 appeals, actually. One is a gentleman was given a cease and desist for a garage that was converted into an apartment. He has appealed the decision, but he's currently in Florida, so he asked us to hold it in advance. We got time for it to come here. And then there's a second one I think was just filed. So a couple of appeals of cease and desist that are making their way to you.
Okay. Any updates on properties? I know you and I spoke about my package store this week.
We did, and what we were able to find out is that the ball is in the court of that with the owner of that package store. He's on hold with the building department until he comes back with the plan to address the roof and other issues that we have with the site. It was kind of interesting because the blight enforcement folks were citing him, trying to get him to move forward to side the building. But on the other hand, from a planning and a zoning enforcement standpoint, we didn't want him to do certain things until he was going to do them the way that he was supposed to do them.
Well, that would, if he's being fined for blight, that should hurry him along a little bit.
So that's where that is. I did get your request at the last meeting that Sean was here, where you wanted that updated list, where I had Ginny work on it before she left, and we weren't able to get it to you for this meeting, but we did note your request, and we will we will have that for you on a regular basis. I do not have it tonight, but we understand your desire.
Okay. I watched the PZC meeting, but do you want to give us a report as far as our requests to PZC?
I think that in a nutshell, what the Planning and Zoning Commission said, because there was differences of opinion amongst the
Can we
commissioners
state what our
themselves.
question was? Because the audience may not know what we're talking about.
The question was, a gentleman was denied an organization, but it was a sign person was denied a sign. They applied for 4 signs. They were granted 3. One was denied as exceeding the building profile of the building. There was some reasonable people could read the sign regulation in different ways. I guess you could put it that way. And so when this board heard the appeal, this board asked Planning and Zoning if they would please interpret that regulation, because the regulation do say the Planning and Zoning Commission interprets it, and that would help you with those kinds of things. Basically, what we ended up with was the regulation needs to be clarified, and they directed me to work on a better definition. But that although there was no formal vote, the chairman said that they would like it interpreted the way that Ginny Higley interpreted it, which was that you have to have it lower. So the sign gentleman has been informed that he can lower the sign, in which case it could be signed off on. The sign regulations in general have some confusion in them, because one section of the regulation says that the director of planning approves sign regulations, and if approves sign applications, and if somebody disagrees, they can go to the Planning and Zoning Commission to review whether I have correctly interpreted the regulation. Another section of the regulation says that a sign permit should be treated as a zoning permit, which is how that it was treated, and why that if the zoning enforcement officer denies the application, then the appeal would be to you as the Zoning Board of Appeals. So that has to be clarified. So we need to, it's on our to-do list in terms of looking at those sign regulations and sort of updating them and trying to make them internally consistent. And as we go along, we'd welcome your participation in that effort. But at the present time, the interpretation remains what Ginny Higley said it was, which is that sign would have to be lowered. Even though, and I think this board was correct, reasonable people could disagree as to how to interpret that regulation.
The short end of it is, Planning and Zoning said that the majority of the main portion of the building, that's the roof line you're going with, versus individual roof lines.
Right.
They are going to be looking at it, and things do need to be clarified and updated. So that's
Because
something
the
they'll have
words
to
exterior
do.
wall is what makes it
Right.
difficult to give you the right answer, or to be sure that our neighbors aren't affected with that. So we agree, but please understand, I think we as a board work very well together, and our job is not to take this regulation and try to twist it. If we've gone back to Planning and Zoning before, Roger, and said, please clarify what you mean by. And then that way there, we always give the same answer to an
Right.
applicant, so.
And we do the same thing in the office. If the Planning and Zoning Commission over the years has, where there are ambiguities in the regulation, has, if they've sort of come out with a way to interpret it, and the way they interpret it, we're starting to go back through and put a book together so that, for example, the question of drive-throughs and how do you handle a drive-through? Our zoning regulations don't the only place the drive-through is mentioned is in connection with a bank. And then there's a section on drive-in restaurants, like the ones you would drive up to, and the car hop would come out and serve you with a little thing. And so, but it's sort of everybody understood that a drive-through was under a section of the regulations that said closely related items on a lot as an accessory could be approved as a special permit. Well, I come in as a new person with no way of knowing that. And the only way I found out was researching, well, how did some other drive-thrus get approved? So we're trying to assemble a book in the office right now that until such time as we start to make some, actually make some changes so that, drive-thrus are not going to disappear, so we ought to acknowledge them in the regulations. I'm not sure there are too many drive-in restaurants anymore, so maybe that
There's a
Sonic.
couple.
could
We
come
need a
out.
Sonic.
There's a couple. All right.
Well,
Anything from the board members to staff? Any other discussion, any other business?
I got a nice card from Jenny. On your behalf, all of you, I brought her a retirement gift from us. I brought her a fruit basket, little fruit thing, and I dropped it off. And so she's writing you all the card says, "It was great to see you bearing my retirement gift. I enjoyed the fruit. Please thank the ZBA members for me. It was great being the liaison for ZBA, and it'll be fun to be a member. See you soon, Jenny." So if you didn't know, Jenny's put her name in to fill a seat on ZBA.
We'll look forward to that.
So-
Anything else? Motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed?